Our gospel today is from Mark chapter 6, beginning at verse 30. And if it's going to be longer, because I just can't cut it and leave part of it out and come back in. So, for those of you who are tired of standing, you may be seated, because it's going to be from 30 to 56. The apostles gathered around Jesus and told him all that they had done and taught. Jesus said to them, "Come away to a deserted place all by yourself and rest a while." For many were coming and going, and they had no leisure even to eat. And they went away in a boat to a deserted place by themselves. Now many saw them going and recognized them, and they hurried there on foot from all the towns and arrived ahead of them. As he went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion for them, because they were like sheep without a shepherd. And he began to teach them many things. When it grew late, his disciples came to him and said, "This is a deserted place, and the hour is now very late. Send them away, so that they may go into the surrounding country and villages and buy something for themselves to eat." But Jesus answered them, "You give them something to eat." They said to him, "Are we to go and buy 200 denarii worth of bread and give it to them to eat?" And he said to them, "How many loaves have you? Go and see." When they had found out, they said, 5, and 2 fish. Then he ordered them to get all the people to sit down in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in groups of hundreds and of 50s. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven, blessed and broke the loaves, and gave them to his disciples to set before the people. And he divided the 2 fish among them all, and all ate and were filled. And they took up 12 baskets full of broken pieces and of the fish. Those who had eaten the loaves remembered 5,000 men. Immediately, he made his disciples get in the boat and go on ahead to the other side, Bethsaida, while he dismissed the crowd. After saying farewell to them, he went up on the mountain to pray. When evening came, the boat was out on the sea, and he was alone on the land. When he saw that they were straining at the oars against the adverse wind, he came toward them early in the morning, walking on the sea. He intended to pass them by, but when they saw him walking on the sea, they thought it was a ghost and cried out, for they all saw him and were terrified. But immediately he spoke to them and said, "Take heart, it is I, do not be afraid." Then he got into the boat with them, and the wind ceased, and they were utterly astounded, for they did not understand about the loaves, but their hearts were hardened. When they crossed over, they came to land at Gennesaret and moored the boat. When they got out of the boat, people at once recognized Jesus and rushed about the whole region, began to bring the sick on mats to wherever they heard he was. And wherever he went, into villages or cities or farms, they laid the sick in the marketplaces and begged him, so that they might touch even the fringe of his cloak. And all who touched it were healed. This is the gospel of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Please be seated. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable to you, O Lord, our God. Amen. So it's a long text today, but Mark is a gospel where things happen fast. The word immediately happens over and over, and stories are woven inside of other stories. And it's no different than we've been going week after week after week. We ended last week with the disciples laying John the Baptist's body in the tomb. And the apostles gathered around. In fact, this is the only place in all the Gospels they're called apostles. Do you know why they are? Because he'd already sent them out. Back in chapter 5, Jesus had already sent them out 2 by 2. And so when we get to the middle of chapter 6, he's already calling them apostles. We generally hear them, the disciples, in all of the Gospels, and they become apostles in the book of Acts when they're going out. And the word is spreading, they receive the Holy Spirit. In Mark, things happened fast. And they went out 2 by 2 even before they really believed. Because the disciples are clueless in the whole 16 chapters of the Gospel of Mark. Mark just never sees them get it. And just like we read today, when Jesus got in the boat, they were utterly astounded, for they did not understand about the loaves. They were still thinking about how did he feed all those people. And here he's walking on the water, and they're surprised again. And everything he does is a time for them to be surprised again and surprised anew. And I think, oh, how did they not know? And then I realized, I do that too. I do that too. I am ever surprised anew by God speaking to me in a new way, or showing me a new thing, or opening up a new window or a door or something. And always coming to my aid when I think that things are not going the way that God intends. We're a small church. Offerings barely cover what it is that we need to do. So when something new comes up, we go, oh, by the way, we need to cut down trees. And people go, okay, let me help support that in addition to what I've been giving. I got to tell you, June was the worst giving month we've ever had. About half of what we need to keep the church alive came in June. And I just wondered, I know that this group is alive and strong and God, and the Holy Spirit is alive here, and we belong here in Mariposa. And so you really have to walk me through this, because I don't know what this is about. And the next day, I opened a check for $2,500 from somebody who doesn't come here, has actually only been here in our building twice in the last 10 years, and isn't a member of our congregation. Just randomly sent a check out for the mission and ministry of Mariposa Lutheran Church. And I was surprised again. So I had asked God to show me that everything is on the right track, and he did. But for a moment there, I was absolutely shocked when I opened the mail. And then I got kind of giggling and thought, what have I to be surprised about? I am just like the disciples who watched Jesus feeding the 5,000 with the loaves and the fish, and then is ever more shocked that he's walking on water. And Jesus walks on water all the time. In our very lives, if you're open to watching and listening, being, it's there. Everything is urgent in the Gospel of Mark, because everything is urgent in God. There are ever more people to hear the word. There are ever more blessings to share. There are ever more. We will always have the poor with us, Jesus said. And it's true. There's always someone else who needs our love and our help, and we get tired from it. I left on Sunday afternoon for 3 days instead of 7 at Mount Cross. These were days to relax, break, be full. And it was cut short for a couple of reasons. One is because they got another pastor to come on Sunday. And so I didn't need to be there the whole week. And then we had welcome, and we didn't want to be here for that. So I cut my thing down to just a few days. And that first morning on Monday, I found out that Robert Johnson passed. And it took all the wind out of my sails. All of the, I've been prepping for 3 sermons ahead. I'm going to take this time with the 3. I think I missed. I just missed. It was very wonderful. Out of the trees, it was about 70 degrees, maybe 60 in the evening. I had to buy a sweatshirt. It was much colder than I expected it was going to be. And it was just perfect, and I missed. And the first inch or so of the bottom of my sweater was all wrong. All wrong. I was off somewhere, and it's supposed to be in little ribbed rows. But instead, it was definitely not, and I got up that day and looked at it and thought, well, the only good thing to do is to tear it out, which I did. So day one, I did my 1.5 inch, tore it all out. Day two, I started again. Somewhere I got a twist in it. And it was just beautiful. All my ribs were perfectly aligned, but it was twisted somehow. And I don't know exactly when on that move that I got it all twisted, but certainly it was twisted. And I want to tell you, there is no fixing for twisted. The day before, I could have just let it be and let that 1st inch, which is down here, and nobody sees. I could let that 1st inch just have been not right, and I could have kept going. But at this point, there is no way to keep going because it is all twisted. There is no hope for it. It will never become a sweater. It might become some kind of weird twisted shawl around thing you could do, but no, that was not going to be. And the second day, I figured out all a second time. The 3rd day, I finally got it right, and I actually have an inch of a sweater that started. But in 3 days, all I got was that much done. And I think, well, how much was I supposed to do? I led a Bible study for the staff each day. I helped out in the kitchen because, bless Adam's heart, the day before camp was supposed to start this summer, the guy that he hired as a camp cook let him know at 11:30 at night on a text that he wasn't coming at 6 o'clock in the morning to be camp cook. And he had no camp cook. So the camp director became the camp cook. And when I heard that, I thought, well, I can get up early in the morning and help out. So I helped out in the kitchen those 3 days. I went to morning worship and evening worship each of the days. I had some precious, precious time with my daughter, Sharon, who has been at that camp now for 3.5 years. And to watch the growth in her, I know everyone grows when they're 18 to 21. But the growth in her, because she has done that growth at that camp, is pretty remarkable and pretty significant. It's a wonderful place. They too are feeling the pressure of all they need to do financially and what isn't going to happen there. And so I spent some of my time telling Adam that it was going to be fun. That it's been there for 75 years and it's God's place. And he needed to hear that too. And so when I look back and say, well, I guess it's pretty productive those days, even though I only had an inch of my sweater done. I walked a lot, I hiked a lot. I got to be in every worshiping space they have. I didn't know they had some of the worshiping spaces they had. And one of the most fun things was having campfires. We can't even barbecue in this climate if your barbecue isn't on 20 by 20 space of concrete. And so to be there, and because the structure of the camp, families can be there all together, family groups. And so each family group had their own campfire. And so it was kind of fun to have all of these little campfires in a row and see people gathered around. And we too gathered around with Jesus in times where he invites us to come away to a quiet place, but it's not quiet when you get there. And we too have that. This is our quiet place. We come here. Sorry about the movie that says quiet place, because that's a really creepy movie. So it's hard to call a church a quiet place after you've seen the quiet place. But Jesus welcomes us to this place where we can rejoice and to be here and to reinvigorate ourselves in wonderful ways as our shepherd gathers us together to do that, not to our own. He doesn't say, hey, everybody, go home, put your feet up and relax for a week. Isn't that what vacation means? Right? You get your day off, you go home, you don't do anything, you look around and you say, I should have vacuumed, but I didn't. No, Jesus invites us to a quiet place where things are still happening. where by the fact that we gathered together and he has fed us and loved us and taught us, that we have enough strength to say, yes, I'm still in the game. I'm still here. And because of Jesus, I can be the person who has the strength for everything that comes my way. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Lead us and guide us like the shepherd and teach us to shepherd his flock. Be for us the quiet place, strength of the meal, and the inspiration to keep laughing when we see your work right in front of us. In Jesus' name.